Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Chapter by Chapter, King of Scars. Today, we are on chapter 16. It is a new character chapter, and I am here to gladly admit that I was wrong. I was so very wrong. In a time where your Reddit comments get torn to shreds for having one tiny inaccuracy, I feel like this is a big step. And I immediately fell in love with this character so much that I don't even care how wrong I was. Buffy is even super excited about it. You look very excited. Chapter 16 is an Isaac chapter. Again, let me tell you, I was wrong. Isaac is not some spy or someone who's there to assassinate Nikolai or betray him. He is another precious baby, and he needs to be protected at all costs. Anything happens to him at the end of this book, I will be devastated.
Devastated.
I'm worried even just saying that out loud because I feel like I'm jinxing myself. Ugh. So why is Isaac now one of the precious BBs? You ask? Let me tell you. The chapter starts with him sitting there being tailored by Jenya. And as he's sitting there for a really long time, he starts to wonder, how did I end up in this place? What brought me to this situation right now? And he begins to think back on this journey that brought him here. It starts with him thinking about Nikolai and how he's actually only a few months older than Nikolai himself. He really came to admire his commander. This admiration starts before the Civil War. So he admires Nikolai not only for his bravery and his cleverness to get out of all these tough situations, but he really admires him for who he is when he is around his people. He always remembers a name. He's always asking about a relative or how your wound is healing. And that's how Nikolai came to know Isaac. Isaac was wounded in battle and he was in the infirmary, and Nikolai came to visit. He came over to Isaac, poured him a glass of water, and actually put it to his lips to get a drink. Isaac was so shocked at this, he almost forgot how to swallow water. They found themselves talking about Isaac's life, his mother, his sisters, and Isaac found himself opening up to Nikolai about something he never really talked about before, his father's death. His father was a tutor at an estate, but after his father's untimely death, his whole family was forced to move out of the estate. They were basically put on the streets. He could afford renting a very small apartment above a dressmaker's shop, where his mother would just take in pieces to work on here and there for money. It's not just Isaac who's giving Nikolai all this praise. Nikolai is really proud of Isaac. Nikolai praises Isaac for his gifts in language. Nikolai even suggests that he should cultivate this gift for languages, especially now that he'll be off the front. Isaac says, yeah, this is something that I would love to consider, but I have to think of my family first. We don't really have a lot of money to do things like that. So Isaac returns home, and months go by of him picking up odd jobs here and there, doing what he can do to support his family. When he comes home from an especially hard day of work, to find a letter. In this letter, Nikolai says he's delighted that they both survived his leadership, and he wanted Isaac on his royal guard. Not only is Nikolai offering him a job, he's offering to supply him with tutors so he can learn any language that he chooses. But Nikolai's like, yeah, but I hope you choose like Shu and Kurch and Zemeni. Being on the king's royal guard is a great honor, and it's usually reserved for war heroes or sons of lesser noblemen. Isaac is really sad to leave his family. They've gone through so much together. So before he leaves, he spends the week patching his family's roof because their landlord just kept refusing to do it, and he sets off for Ozalta.
Oh, he's so sweet.
This is just like the first moment that I was like,
wow,
I could not have been more wrong. And he cares about his family so much. Isaac really came to enjoy the work that he did and his new home in Os Alta, especially after the chaos of his life and after participating in the war. And he really enjoyed the pleasure of being able to learn languages on his off time. He got to send home his wages every month, and his family got to move into this new cottage, and they have a little garden where they can grow vegetables, and his mom can sew by the window because it has really good light. Ugh. And then the Darkling attack. Isaac stood with Nikolai's family to defend their name and defend the crown. When Nikolai became king, he stood there and watched this man that he admired be coronated, and he had a lot of pride in his heart. Life went on after the Civil War. He became fluent in Shu, Zemeni, and Kerch, and Suli, which led him to learn extra pay as being a translator for the crown. It was funny because in Nikolai's letter to Isaac, he was talking about, learning all these new languages, and he warned him about learning poetry in different languages. But despite this, Isaac really developed a love of poetry of all kinds, which means he could be best friends with Tolia, my other love. And that brings us up to speed on where Isaac is today. He was really surprised when Tamar sought him out when he was on duty, and he was really overwhelmed and frightened to realize that he was meeting with Nikolai's most trusted counsel. He was relieved that Zoya wasn't there though, because he could avoid her looks of disdain. Then he is told the king is missing. So I'm like, how much time has gone by that they actually sought out Isaac and told him that the king is missing? Because I can't see the twins just looking around for a couple of hours being like,
nothing's missing there, just, give up on that.
They had to have searched for at least a decent amount of time to make sure he was actually gone, or they didn't find him dead somewhere. He knew they were giving him as little detail as possible, but that didn't make it any less strange. They just told him that they were traveling the unsea and just vanished. They found no sight of them at all. Jenya's like, I don't know if Nikolai is in need of rescue or if he's beyond it. But at this point, we can't let our enemies know that he's missing. And I know that Nikolai is not dead and Zoya isn't dead, but I'm still stressed having to listen to everyone talk about him like he's dead because I'm worried for him still. In 2 weeks' time, they're having their Festival of Autumn nonsense. All of these prospective brides and their entourages from their country are going to be coming in to talk to Nikolai. They need Isaac to play the role of the king. Nikolai came up with this plan himself. It leads back to whenever he was coming back from the Gilded Bog and saw Isaac and that other guard.
I can't remember his name now.
But he said that they looked so alike they could have been brothers. But they weren't related at all. Isaac was even on the top of Nikolai's list for potential Nikolai imposters. Isaac is like, oh, you can't expect me to do this. Tolia is like,
we can. And we do.
Which would have to be super intimidating. That alone I would be like, okay. And they start talking about how they can't even put off the brides from coming because there's really serious matters of state that they have to deal with too. That one of the Shu's guards might be ready to defect. They could learn so much valuable information from this person. They could finally figure out what exactly is going on with the Kurgud. Tamar tells Isaac, your country needs you. But it's Genya who really gets to him by saying, you need to do this for your king. And of course, Isaac was going to say yes. He obviously loves his country so much, and he loves Nikolai. He has such respect for him. Nikolai was the one who changed his life, changed his family's life. He's going to say yes and do this for him. So then the transformation begins. He doesn't just need to take lessons on how to be a wealthy man. He is taking lessons on how to be king. Isaac says that the strangest part of this whole transformation is the time that he spends with Genya. He's sitting there for all this time, sweating through his clothes because, the transformation process isn't exactly fun. But he feels like Genya isn't just performing this task on him. He feels like she's really studying him. And he finds himself falling a little bit in love with her. I was really excited that her and David were married, but now I'm like, that marriage might be able to break up for Isaac because I really like him. He even mentions she's clearly in love with David, who sat there silently and awkwardly through most of their lessons, like just mumbling bits of information here and there. It was Jenya's apparent taste in unassuming men that made him love her even more. And then he notices that one of the scars on her face just kind of tugs on her lip and he wants to kiss that spot. Then he's brought back to reality from all of his romantic thoughts by her poking and prodding, and she's like, you're in my light, you need to move, or you're not sitting the right way. To make use of the little time they had while he was sitting there, sometimes the others would come in and try to give him a little history lesson, or give him little pop quizzes while Genya worked. They come up with a plan to sneak him in through the tunnels and kind of make it look like, oh, there's the king's grand return. They keep mentioning these tunnels, so I'm like,
Something else going on in the tunnels?
I have to be suspect of something or someone. It wouldn't be a review if I'm not a little unsure of someone or something. There is Zoya's absence they still have to worry about, but they can kind of dismiss that by saying she stayed behind to journey somewhere else. They're all gathered there while Genya is working on Isaac. And she just kind of sits back and gets really frustrated. She doesn't understand how someone just vanishes. It's impossible. And they're joking like, oh, well, leave it to Nikolai to do the impossible. Or maybe Zoya finally got sick of him and just buried him in the sand. But Jenny is really serious about this. The Apparat could have done this. You know, he staged a coup before. Everyone else isn't really so certain it was the Apparat, though, because he definitely would have taken advantage of the king's absence to expose them all. But at the same time, they have to be very, very cautious with the Apparat around Isaac. Jenny is defeated in this moment. She slumps down with her head in her hands, and she's like, who are we kidding? This is never going to work. And this makes Isaac feel horrible, and it's not his fault. It's not just Isaac's features that are going to make him Nikolai. It's the way that Nikolai inhabits all of his features. She's certain that they're not going to be able to fool anyone that was close to Nikolai. And Isaac's apologizing, and even Jenny is like, I know it's not your fault. They're all talking about how they're completely out of other options at this point. If they even got caught doing this, David's like, what exactly would we be guilty of? Can it be treason if you're doing it for the king? On top of that, if this fails, they'll basically be handing all of themselves over to the Apparat. He will swipe out all of the top Grisha Council just like that.
Thanos snap.
Jenny tells Isaac she knows he's doing his best, and this was just impossible of them to even ask him from the very beginning. Isaac hates seeing all of these really strong, brave people looking so defeated. He's brought back to Nikolai sitting at the side of his infirmary bed, and how his mother smiles now and his sister's cheeks are plump. This is all possible because of what Nikolai did for Isaac. That's what drives him to just sit back in his chair.
This is how I picture it.
And he takes on Nikolai's arrogance. He makes a few Nikolai-like snarky comments.
Still picturing this.
They all start whooping and cheering and celebrating this great performance that Isaac is giving. Jenny even gives him a kiss. Just on the cheek, but good for Isaac. But Isaac does what Nikolai would never do in this moment, and he blushes. And that is the end of chapter 16. When I first turned the page and saw Isaac's name, I was like,
what?
Are we going to learn all about his deceitful ways? But no, I was so genuinely surprised that I loved him this fast. The way that Leigh Bardugo wrote him, how can you not love him immediately? And we have to. He's going to be the one putting on this front as Nikolai, who's saving everyone's asses, basically. If we get to the point in the book where we're actually at the
I'm wondering
if the Apparat is going to come up to Isaac and probably be a little bit fooled by him. But after the craziness and excitement of last chapter, I was perfectly fine to kind of slow it down a little bit and learn a lot about Isaac. But I'm ready to jump back into the madness, don't get me wrong. And I even think, little crazy prediction here, with all of the alluding to the love poetry in other languages, what if Isaac, as Nikolai, falls in love with one of these potential queens? He's reciting them love poetry in their own language. Maybe it's like a Kalish one, because that's the one Nikolai warned him about, I think. And that would be such an interesting twist to the story. Would Isaac be able to choose a bride? I don't know. Or is it going to be completely up to the council? Is that going to cause a little bit of tension? I don't even know if we'll get to it in this book, but I am very excited to see where this is going, as always.
At the end of every chapter, I say that, I think.
Thank you guys so much for joining me for another chapter by chapter. Obviously, things are really heating up now. Things are really picking up pace. I need to talk about this more.
Please join me.
So like, subscribe, comment down below. Let's get talking about this book. And I will see you guys next time.